Alright, what is up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today is a bit more of a serious video. Just a reality check for everyone and anyone that needs to know. But before I get into that, I am going to go through a couple announcements here. I just want to let everyone know, thanks a lot for all the support, and it's been pretty good run so far. As for long form content, I definitely need to dive in on that. I need to hop in on that and get that ball rolling. I do have a long list of videos to make. My main problem is I always have a hard time choosing which video to make when. I will say right now the overall choice is very clear, very obvious for me. And also, I can no longer recommend you buy Smith & Wesson products, at least, as a person who has dealt with them very frequently. I can no longer recommend that you go and buy Smith & Wesson, and I can't say that it'll be an awesome experience either, because there's a very decent chance it might not be, and, you'll see. I'm going to get into that later. That's a whole separate video. I just wanted to say that outright right now because I just can't, with a clear conscience, recommend Smith & Wesson. Now, that's not to say they are all bad. If you get a good Smith & Wesson revolver and it's functional and there's nothing wrong with it, and you treat it right and you take care of it, you train right, it will last you and it'll be a great gun. The problem is their quality control, and then in second place behind that, or actually I don't know what's worse. Their quality control and customer service is garbage. I'll be, like I said, getting into that in a different video. Just putting that out there. I don't want anybody else buying Smith & Wessons on my behalf. It's not like I work with them anyway. I have no obligation to push their product, even though I use it, and it is actually my go-to and probably will continue to be my go-to. It just is what it is. What I'm really saying is buy Smith & Wesson at your own risk and at your own discretion, because it's bad, real bad, super bad. Another video, sorry. Moving on. Yeah, so I always have these problems with picking which topic to make a video on, and then not only do I have a problem with that, once I pick a topic, I'll record like 30 minutes, 40 minutes of me blabbering on, right? It's very unstructured. And then I end up hating the video, and so I'm trying to make my videos more structured, a little bit easier to follow for both myself and for the viewer, and we'll see how this all goes. So as for today's topic, which I was going to make a video on September 4th is the day I'm uploading this. I'm actually recording right now on September 3rd, and the reason why it has to be September 4th is because it's my 1-year anniversary to the thing that landed me with 4 months of probation, and also like $5,000 of expenses that I had to pay. Now, I understand there's going to be a lot of haters who are, really heel clicking right now. They're jumping up in their seat, whoopee, yippee. They're really celebrating my my little stumble here. But to them, I have no respect for them anyway, so, how could I care about something I don't respect? But I am sharing this information because it is important, it is relevant to the sport of shooting, and it's very serious. It is. So, without, holding out any further, let me get right into this. So, last year, on Memorial Day, which happened to be September 4th that year, I ended up having a negligent discharge. Now, it wasn't a normal negligent discharge either, and it's probably not the way you were expecting. So, if any of you remember, I was bringing up the fact that, I want to cut a 500 Magnum for moon clips. Yes. So, what I did was, and I still have it here, I have an extra 500 Magnum cylinder, and I even still have these hardcast 700 grains to go with it. Now, as you can see, this is a gigantic bullet. Basically what I was doing was I had just ordered my calipers. I knew that I had a general idea of what I wanted to do to make this work with moon clips. As far as I know, there's not an actual gunsmith that will do this service willingly, like this is like, if the gun blows up at this point and destroys something you don't intend to, that's all on you at this point. I don't think it will. I highly doubt it, especially because I only planned on using like 300 to 350 grain projectiles out of this. Pretty light, going at like a medium speed. I just wanted to be able to load a 500 Magnum via moon clips that's not 50 GI, because they do offer 50 GI moon clip cuts. They cut it to shape to accept moon clips that hold 50 GI. Well, that moon clip that holds 50 GI would never hold a 500 Magnum. So I was working with what I had, and I was making measurements at that very moment. I actually didn't really get very far in these measurements before I had to get up and use the restroom. I got myself some water. Now, before I did that, and you can probably see exactly where this is going, I had actually used a real live round for reference. Now imagine the rest of the gun is here. I only had one shot in the chamber, right? But imagine this cylinder has a gun around it. And so when you tilt it back, there's a little bit of stick out, there's a little bit of play that you have here. And I was trying to measure everything to see how much material I'd actually need to remove from this face of the cylinder to make moon clips work with 500 Magnum and fit properly. And so I put that in there for reference as I started to take a couple measurements. I left it in there. Now the thing about my 500 Magnum, when I had it, which I no longer have it actually in fact no longer exists, as I had gotten my receipt of destruction from the government. But essentially I don't leave it loaded, right? Like, this was one of the guns. I have a few guns that I just never have loaded ever. Like, ever, not even with snap caps, I don't even have 500 Magnum snap caps. That's why I was using the live cartridge. And so the 500 Magnum was just one of those guns that I just never had loaded. I would never really mess with it too much. I liked to take it to the range, and you could see that in my earlier shorts, that I definitely shot quite a bit of 500 Magnum, considering, like, it's expensive, quite a bit. And, it's just one of those things I never really monkeyed with outside of the range. I never really did anything with the gun outside of the range. I didn't do any training with it, like dry training. I couldn't do any dry training. I didn't have snap caps for it. And so anyway, as I got up to use the restroom and get my glass of water, came back, and this is where my fault is at play here. My fault was what I did, the fundamental rule that I broke. Now, of course, you have the four main safety rules. I'm talking about a fundamental rule, like, yes, you can dry fire a gun. It's part of training, and it's part of, getting better as a shooter. But the thing is, you have to make sure and ensure it's unloaded. You have to check visibly and even physically. Just run your fingers in the chambers, visibly look down there. If there's a shadow casted over the chamber and you can't directly see that the chamber is for sure empty, change your angle, get the lighting in there, make sure you can see directly in there. And at worst case scenario, you have to stick a pinky in the chamber and make sure it's empty, assuming low lighting conditions. Now, what I did not do was that. I did not check the chambers beforehand. I was used to the gun being unloaded, and it wasn't common. What I was doing was uncommon. It was out of my routine, and I became complacent, and that was my biggest mistake. Now, what I did was, and actually, obviously I pulled the trigger. So what happened was, I was holding it, unaware, because I did not check, and I had already forgotten as I came back, that it was loaded with one in the chamber. I actually pulled the trigger double action, and I was pointing it at a wall, just like this, directly at a wall. Not really aiming down sights, just kind of like mid-chest level, just pointing at the wall. Pulled the double action trigger, boom, well, not boom, click. the cylinder cycled, the hammer went, and it was a click. And then, ooh, I put it in single action because that gun had phenomenal single action, by the way. A phenomenal trigger, just in general. One of the best Smith & Wesson triggers I've ever pulled. And it wasn't even a Performance Center 500 Magnum. It was just the standard 4-inch 500 Magnum. And so I put it in single action. I did the same thing. I pointed it at the wall and I pulled. And at that moment, massive concussive blast, just, you could imagine. And I was in my bedroom. Now, that's pretty bad, yeah. But what's even worse is it went into my neighbors, and I'm not really like that neighbor who says hello every time, and I'm not really one to strike up conversation with my neighbors. Maybe I should, but it's just the way it is. Now, to be fair, I don't really think that these people really would have been interested in talking to me either way. But that's besides the point. The point is, I blasted that 500 Magnum, and yes, because it was all I had at the time, was a 700 grain 500 Magnum hard cast bullet right through the wall, right into my neighbors, and it was bad. It was terrible. Not only were my ears like decimated, particularly my right ear. My right ear actually, it is noticeably worse ever since that day. It has never fully restored hearing. My left ear, not so much. My left ear is actually fine. For some reason, it really just blasted my right ear somehow. I don't know why. It was in front of me. It's just what happened. And so both ears were ringing. Especially my right ear was ringing so bad I couldn't even hear out my right ear at that moment. Now, I tried to hear. I tried to listen for screams. Couldn't hear screams. I think I was about to go somewhere else with the story, but I'm just going to tell you what happened, and then I'm going to come back. Didn't hear any screams. Of course, my ears were ringing very loud. Now, I just kind of stood there for a second, like, uh-oh, yeah. I definitely thought, now, not that it was 100% in my head, but I knew for a fact that there was a very high chance that I could have just killed somebody. And that is, that's pretty heavy. It is. It's not normal. It's not lighthearted. It is not something to be joked about. Of course, whatever, the memesters will be memesters. They just don't know how to take this stuff seriously, either A, because they never learned how to take stuff seriously, or because they just don't care, which I don't care about people who don't care. So there's that. Now, yes, very heavy stuff. I for sure was thinking, this is it. I killed somebody. I'm going to jail for sure, and that's the end of that. And it was bad. It was real bad. I probably the craziest adrenaline rush of my life that I've ever had. And I've had plenty of other adrenaline-filled encounters and stories, but this one takes the cake. Definitely worst feeling, worst feeling of all time. Honestly, I can't that. I'm speechless. Even now, just thinking about that feeling, I'm speechless. There's no way to put it into words other than just sheer it's the end. It might as well be the end of the world. Might as well. So I ran over there, and I ran to their door, and because I saw right through the hole, and I saw it obviously clearly went into their place. Ran over there, knocked on the door a few times, and luckily I could hear some faint thuds because of the floorboards, and I could hear them through the wall. Ears still ringing, of course, but these buildings are kind of old and they're crickety, and so it's kind of easy to hear people walking in there. But of course, the door opens. I'm greeted by a Younger lady, I don't know how old she was to this day. Uh, Younger than me, probably. I wouldn't say she was a child, but definitely young, not good. And I explained what happened, and luckily, she was all right. She was the only one home at the time. But even if she wasn't home, it still would have been just as serious. And, you know, if no one opened that door, I probably would have broke into their house to make sure, like, nobody needed an immediate act to slow bleeding or stop bleeding. Now, of course, I'm not like military trained. I'm not a policeman, but I know how to stop bleeding, and I think that's actually something that everyone should know how to do. Um, at least in the sport, everyone really. It's good knowledge to have. There's a million ways you can bleed out. You can get. It's like think construction work. Watch your pinch points, watch your slips and trips. There's a lot of things that can really just your human body is fragile. Even when you're some big hulking man and you're tough, you're still fragile. 80,000 pounds doesn't care about your human body. That's just the way it works. You exceed forces over a certain level, it just doesn't even matter at that point. It's toast. You gotta just accept it. Now, I was super lucky. I was super lucky. I'm sorry I'm all over the place. I know it's hard to keep track of everything in my head, but I was very lucky. Um, that could have been it. That could have been it right there. Not only for me and my freedom, not only for my pursuit of this career, but also especially for that young lady that happened to be home at the time. And I don't know what I expected going into this video. My point is, this is a public service announcement to anybody getting into the sports for whatever reason. And I think this happens more often than people think, more often than people want to think, and more often than anyone would admit. And that's bottom line. Like it's happened. It happens. People aren't perfect, and I don't want anyone to see my content, right? And I don't want them to see what I'm doing. And they say, "Oh, look, he's performing at a high level. He must know what he's doing." He must be perfect. Oh, he's perfect. No, it's not the case. Not the case. I'm just a man. I'm just a guy. Um, and it's part of the sport in a way, and it's also the reason why. If you guys ever see anybody get super uptight about something real small, like a really small safety detail, you know, uh, it's probably because they know that hey, you don't stop that now, that's going to lead to something big. You're not going to be able to stop when it happens. And I'm just speaking from my own experience here. I had a guy I ran into at the range the other day. It seemed like he had two younger gentlemen that he brought to the range, and he was kind of. It appeared that he was looking over them, right? And so they just get there, and the first thing the one young gentleman does is he pulls out the gun and he's holding it sideways like this. And of course, me being me, I say, hey, you got to make sure that stays down range. You can't be pointing it anywhere that you wouldn't want to shoot. And I had this whole thing on camera. I'm not going to show it. I don't care to show it. I don't care to expose this guy. But it's a simple story that happened, and I find it ridiculous of how it played out. But what happened was the young gentleman looked at me like I was speaking Chinese when I said keep the muzzle down range. So then I visibly showed him, hey, keep it like this. You can't keep it like this or this. And I didn't even turn the gun to represent that because I'm that serious about it. And the guy behind them, the oldest gentleman there was like, well, I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but he said, we haven't even shot yet. We haven't even shot yet. So it's not about that. It's not about if you had bullets in your gun. It's not even if there was ammo in the room. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's no ammo in the room. What matters is that the fundamentals are followed because they're there for a reason to prevent very, very bad, dangerous situations that can maim, permanently disable, kill, and lock people up for a long time. And these are all bad things. And, it really comes down to you don't have to do that. You just gotta, if you just follow the safety rules, like, to a T even, to a T, be meticulous. Don't let up. Because once you let up, once you become complacent, like I did, I was sure that it was unloaded. It was my fault. I have no excuse. There is no excuse. The excuse is non-existent, and it's just what happened. And it can happen to anybody. It can happen to you. I've heard a dozen stories from people that I've talked to personally. Right? Even when that cop got there, because the police arrived up, of course. Even when the police arrived, I explained what happened. I showed them everything, and I think I still have a picture of it. Don't mind this picture if it's still there. This is actually a screenshot of a screenshot that I got out of an archive because I ended up actually deleting all these pictures because I was just like, I don't even want to think about it. I want to see it, whatever. But here it is. I mean, I'm not making this up. Like, this isn't for clicks. This isn't for views. And in fact, I'm even gonna, if I ever get monetized, I'm going to demonetize this video in particular because this is not. I don't feel like I should make money for this. This isn't for entertainment. This is for education. So that is that. But 1 year later, we made it. No notable mistakes or accidents since, and I'm grateful for that. But also, that just partly came down to me, not becoming complacent and just following the basic safety rules. You just gotta always check. Every firearm is loaded until you actually check, and actually checking isn't just grabbing the charging handle, ripping it, and seeing if something ejects. That's not checking. Checking is holding it back, looking in there, feeling in there, and being 100% sure and positive that there's nothing in the chamber. But yeah, the gentleman at that range, though, he was really set on trying to argue me on the basic fundamentals of gun safety and handling. And I gotta say, he's a moron. You know, uh, there's no reason to be combative towards something that's there to keep you safe. All right. That's not a blanket statement. But in this case, there's no reason to be combative towards something that is going to keep you safe now and for the future. Like it's gun safety. It's not this isn't, we're not throwing masks on here to stop the bullets from going in our face. We are keeping the bullets from never ever getting pointed in our face. Dang, dude, this was a hard video actually. It was actually like, I'm not very emotional about it. It's hard to really. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's what happened, and I feel like I'd be doing everybody who follows me, and everybody who looks up to me, and everybody who is inspired by me. I'd be doing you a disservice to just keep this under the rug. That was my plan from the start. I was going to actually wait this full year to share this story, and here I am sharing it. And why a full year? Well, part of it was because I wanted to prove to my audience that this isn't a regular occurrence. This isn't something. This is a less than 1% chance thing of happening. For me at least, and for other people, that percent chance is going to be a little bit different depending on how they operate things. All right. So yeah, seriously, if you guys ever go out shooting with friends, don't be afraid to speak up to them about some safety rules that they might be overlooking, because what happens is you build habits on these things that you overlook, and oh, you didn't check the chamber that time, but I'll check it next time. But then you don't check it next time, and next thing you know, you're like me, and you thought you killed somebody. So, not trying to be like overly dramatic here. It's just the reality of the sport. Um, you know, you look at all the pros. The pros have their negligent discharge stories. Some of them worse than others. Some of them, not that bad. Like, oh yeah, I had one go off into the cupboard. I had it pointed in a safe direction. Now that's the thing about mine is, I guess a second rule that I broke was I did not have it pointed in a safe direction because the bullet went beyond the target, which was my wall at the time, and it went beyond it and had the potential to hit anybody or anything of value beyond that wall, which is, I feel like a lot of people don't consider. And I know a lot about, wall penetration. I understand, I was watching Demolition Ranch back in the early days when he would test all sorts of crazy tests. Oh, how many dish soap bottles can we shoot through? Stuff like that. I know all about it. Huge mistake on my end. Um, and all I can do is just move forward and preach the truth. And the truth is, you got to stay safe. You can't become complacent. Complacency is death, as they say. And if it's not death for you, it might be death for someone else. And I'd say that might even be worse in the case that you're taking somebody's life unintentionally. Um, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it now other than move on with my life and, uh, you know, continue safe practices and share safe practices. And in a way, as terrible as it was a good experience and it was a good wake up call. And, you know, to many more safe years. Because, no words. Yeah, wow. Well, sorry if this video was all over the place, guys. I just needed to tell you. I needed to inform you. It's not. It's very serious. It's not to be taken lightly. It's not. You know, guns aren't toys. As much as I play with them, as much as plenty of people play with them, um, it's not just a sport necessarily. They are tools with a intended purpose in mind, and that intended purpose in mind happens to be death and destruction, which um, can be very useful depending on what situation you find yourself in. It can be, or it can be very bad. So, yeah, just follow those safety rules, guys. For real, I cannot stress this enough. You do not want to experience what I experienced that day, even if you only did it with a 9mm. And I've known a guy who's done it with a 9mm. So, yeah, that's all, man. Until the next video, I just had to make this. I also had to maybe set an example for Smith & Wesson, and, show them how it's done, what it looks like to take accountability for their mistakes. And it's only a coincidence that this Smith & Wesson incident that I'm about to post another video on happened at the time it did, because I was going to upload this video anyway. But have a good one and stay safe. Follow those safety rules. They're there for a reason. They're not just there because some ornery old guy thought that kid at the range was annoying, so he made him do this. No, it's not like that. It actually saves lives. It keeps people from blowing toes off, fingers off, eyes out, brains out, everything. It's there for a reason. I can't stress that enough. I've probably said it 50 times in this video. It's reality. So